Regular viewers of this broadcast will agree, I think, that this is the single most predictable thing we've ever done around here. This is going to be a look at the 1961 inauguration of John F. Kennedy. While we strive to avoid predictability, how do we avoid this one? There are so many connections. Bill Clinton yesterday seemed to want to make exactly that point by visiting the grave of JFK, but even without that, the connections would still be there. The new president's speech that day in '61 is one of the few inauguration speeches anyone remembers at all. It was a speech, indeed it was a day, that emphasized the change not just in leadership, but in a generation of leadership. And you will see that again later today when the last president of the Depression and World War II and the Cold War turns over the keys to the Oval Office to the first president of the Vietnam era, the first president shaped by the '60s. You will also see later today a poet taking center stage, just as a poet took center stage in 1961. And it is the poet and the poem that begins this World News Then.
Robert Frost shares with Carl Sandburg the unofficial title of America's Poet Laureate. A Westerner, he is now a poet of New England, a craggy man.
Dedication. Summoning artists to participate in the august occasions of the state seems something for us all to celebrate. And today is for my cause a day of days. And his be poetry's old-fashioned praise, who was the one who was the first to think of such a thing. This tribute to be his that here I bring is about, no, I'm not having a good light here,
Poet's license to complain about his lighting.
The new order of the ages. I can't see this slide. Is about the new order of the ages that God, that in their Latin, our founding sages, God gave us his approval of. Let me have it.
Robert Frost has taken the top hat of Vice President Lyndon Johnson to shade the glare of the light by which he cannot read his own poetry.
I think I'll say this was to be a preface to the poem I can say to you without seeing it. The poem goes like this. The land was ours before we were the land's. She was our land more than 100 years before we were her people. She was ours in Massachusetts and Virginia, but we were England's, still colonials, possessing what we still were unpossessed by what we now no more possessed. Something we were withholding made us weak, until we found out that it was ourselves we were withholding from our land of living, and forthwith found salvation in surrender. Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright. The deed of gift was many deeds of war, to the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, artless, unenhanced, such as she was, such as she would become, has become, and for this occasion, let me change that to what she will become. And this poem, what I was leading up to, was a dedication of the poem to the President-elect, Mr. John Finlay.
You, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, John Fitzgerald
Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. Only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking His blessing and His help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own.
The man that you see now is not the man, not the same man that you saw 15 minutes ago. That man was John F. Kennedy, private citizen, winner of an election, but still a private citizen. This man, receiving the congratulations, is now the 35th President of the United States.
What we have is a distinguished visitor, Mr. Harry S. Truman, who is going to talk with John Edwards of our White House staff.
Well, Mr. President, you say you're hungry, and we won't keep you but a moment. You said you'd be glad to tell me what you thought of President Kennedy's speech.
A marvelous and wonderful address, and just exactly what the people should hear and live up to. It's a great address.
Now, there was that one point in it, I remember, when he said, "My fellow Americans, ask not what your country will do for you, but what you can do for your country."
That's the key to the whole thing.
That's the key to the whole thing.
That's exactly what you've all got to do, what we always have done.
Adlai Stevenson, soon to be approved as the new United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Mr. Stevenson, what in a general way is your reaction to the inaugural address of President Kennedy?
I thought he invited the support of the American people for whatever sacrifices are necessary to that end, with certainty, with confidence, with great purpose. I think it's a speech that will live long in our national history.
It is a bright, sunshiny day despite the brisk winds. Not too much for President Kennedy, as you can see, still riding hatless in the start of the inaugural parade. There goes the topper. No question in this inaugural about top hat or Homburg. The top hats have it. President Kennedy and Mrs. Kennedy passing the old office building on Pennsylvania
Inauguration of John Kennedy in 1961. The festivities for Bill Clinton begin at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock on the Pacific Coast later today. Peter Jennings and David Brinkley anchoring for ABC News, and they'll be on most of the day. The swearing in at noon Eastern Time. This is World News Now.